Hey everyone. So since I'm living in China, I thought I would talk a little bit about the education system out here and explain how it has been dubbed an authoritarian education system because of the standardized testing. So basically in China, from kindergarten to grade 12, everything is centered around standardized tests, primarily the standardized tests that students will take at the end of high school. And this test will determine just about everything in their life from that point onward. So while Chinese students are thought to have an above average work ethic and they are thought to be some of the best, actually the best test takers in the world, a lot of people argue that Chinese students come out of high school without the ability to really think critically or think creatively, and it's creating a culture of conformity rather than innovation. So first I'm going to give you some historical overview about this test that they have to take. So while there are many standardized tests that Chinese students have to take, the most important one is called the Gaokao test, which they need to take at the end of high school. And this is thought to be the most intense standardized test in the history of the world. It is a 12-hour test taken over 2 to 3 days, and it focuses mainly on math, science, and English language. And the scores determine which university the students go to, which then determines their social standing, their marriage prospects, and kind of the prosperity of their whole family, since in China families tend to stay together, well, until people start to die. So this test is kind of a defining moment in every student's life. And from grade 1 and onwards, students are taught in a way that kind of prepares them for the test. So education focuses largely on rote memorization, the student's ability to regurgitate facts. It's kind of like a mass production form of education. So the test, it came about in the 1950s after the Communist Party of China was formed, and it gained popularity in the 1980s, and now it is standard law. Everyone needs to take the test if they want to go to university. And it makes sense in China because it's a solution to the problem of overpopulation. So there's so many students here, and there just aren't enough educational resources for them. So this test really weeds out the weak ones and makes getting into university a very cutthroat process, only for those students who have studied the hardest. So as I said earlier, the test, the Gaokao exam does create a very heightened work ethic in Chinese students, but at the same time preparing for it is almost like a traumatic process. So I've been reading that the average high school student spends about 8 to 10 hours a day studying for this test in the 4 years leading up to the moment when they take it. So from grade 9 and onwards, if they want to do well on the test, they should be studying about 8 extra hours a day for it, which is insane when you think about the amount of schoolwork and homework they already have. And a lot of students after high school or in the last year of high school, they enroll in cram schools where they study about 17 hours a day just for the test. Usually these are boarding schools, and the teachers there are they're instructed to be very ruthless, like boot camp instructors. And there are very severe punishments for tardiness, for not doing the work well, for being disobedient. So these schools are not for the faint of heart. Although the Gaokao test doesn't happen until high school, you can already see impacts of the exam as early as elementary school, where students are taught that rote memorization is the key to learning and that they shouldn't participate unless they have the right answer. So I've noticed this a lot in my grade 1, 2, and 3 classes, where students are really, really shy to participate unless they are 100% comfortable discussing the topic. And I've also noticed that on tests, whenever a student doesn't know the answer, instead of trying, they just leave the question blank because they would rather say nothing than say the wrong thing. And by the way, these are questions like, what will you do this summer? And they just don't know how to put it into words, so they just don't say anything. So just the whole culture and regulations of standardized testing in China really do contribute to a culture of students who are great at passing tests, great at memorizing, great at conforming and complying, but they aren't great at thinking as individuals. They aren't particularly skilled in being innovative as learners.